Hi everyone, haven't made a video in a while. Today I'm going to be showing you how to transfer photographs onto wooden discs like this and how to create a sort of frame for your image. I've used tissue paper here, although there are other methods. I've got some other earlier attempts to show you of varying degrees of success. And I've got some that are kind of already on the go. I started these earlier. So today I'm using these flat wooden discs, and I'm going to use an image here of these dancing figures and this photo of my cat, because everyone likes a pet photo. So these are printed using a laser printer rather than an inkjet printer. What that means is that they're printed using a kind of dry ink rather than wet ink, because the transfer process does use liquid and we don't want the ink to run as we're doing that. So this one I did earlier using inkjet printing, and you can see that it has transferred, but the colour, the ink has sort of bled, so it's become kind of grimy. So that's why we want to use laser printing specifically. What we're using for the transfer is Mod Podge. Mod Podge is a kind of glue, a kind of crafting glue. So I've got that, I've got some paintbrushes, which I'll use to apply the Mod Podge, and then also to apply water. I've got a tea towel here that I'll use to mop up splashes. We need scissors. I have a pen for drawing around my circles. And then for creating the frame, like I did on this one, I've used tissue paper. Got a whole stash here. But you could equally use something like washi tape, or it might be that you would want to use something like sequins or beads, or you could use felt tip pens or Posca pens, something like that. But the method that I will show you happens to use tissue paper. Okay. Oh, and I mentioned that we'd be using water, but I didn't show you that I actually have water. So here we go. I do. So it might all seem like a bit of a mystery right now. How do we get there? How do we use Mod Podge and water to transfer photographs onto wooden discs? But I'm going to change my camera angle and I'll show you the whole process now. So the first thing we need to do is to prepare a circular image for transferring onto this disc. So I'm going to place my disc over the image. It doesn't have to be exactly centered, but I think that pretty much is centered. Draw around it. And then we'll cut it out. You actually probably want to cut it out slightly smaller than the disc itself. So perhaps cutting a little way into, just a few millimetres into the line that you've just drawn, if that makes sense. You know, a few millimetres inside the circle that you drew, so that it's just slightly smaller than the disc itself. So there we have a circular image, and as you can see, the print doesn't go quite up to the edges, but I'm okay with that in the light of the framing situation. Now I have these two circular images. I did that one earlier. We will take our Mod Podge. We will apply a thin but even layer of Mod Podge all over the image. Now I've seen some YouTubers suggest that you use like a foam squeegee thing or a credit card to apply the glue evenly. Now I can just whack it on with a brush. So now we're going to lay this image face down onto the disc. And just being careful to lay it on properly flat. And I do want to really smooth it out. Making sure that there's no sort of bubbles or ridges. There we go. And if you're doing multiple transfers, it might be that you'd want to experiment with different amounts of Mod Podge. So put in thinner layers on some transfers than others and see which gets you the better effects. As you can hopefully see here, I'm obviously applying Mod Podge all over the image. I'm trying to be fairly even with it, right up to the edges, getting it quite even. But other than that, there's no, really great technique to how I apply the Mod Podge. I think it's more important that we ensure we've properly smoothed it down. Okay. Now these we need to leave to dry completely. Mod Podge does dry pretty quickly, but if you can, for better results, you might want to leave them to dry overnight before you move on to the next stage. So that's the first stage done. Easy peasy. What you'll come back to the next day is something like this. The next stage is to get your water and just splash some water or dab some water onto the paper. Now I'm not using very much. Again, you want the water to be even, as in getting a sort of even coverage all over the paper, but a sort of light coverage. I've used a brush, but you could sort of splash it on with your fingers. In fact, I'll do that here. Oh, splashy, splashy. There we go. And I would recommend just using a little bit of water at first, because of course you can then add more if you need to. Now here's the magic bit. So you sort of rub. Oh, see, that's nowhere near enough water. Stick some more on. You're going to start to rub at the surface of the paper. And you'll begin to see an image coming through. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Like magic. You will be able to tell from this point of the video that as far as I'm concerned, it is spring. It is no longer winter. The sun is out. We will have no more cold weather. I have decreed it, and therefore it is so. I'll let that dry a little bit rather than keep worrying away at it whilst it's wet. I'll let it dry off a bit and then we'll see if it needs more water and more rubbing. And this one, I cut around the whole outline of my image. So let's see who appears here. It's a goat. This is a random goat I found on the internet. Isn't they cute? Because I met a goat to the other. Oh no. You see, you can't afford to talk and do this at the same time. You start to rub off too much paper. Never mind. It's almost like a little heart shape I've rubbed off there. What I was saying was that I met a goat the other day and posted a picture of him in our WhatsApp group. Our Moving Memories WhatsApp group. This is not the same goat, it's a different goat. So it's presenting you with a daisy, I think it is. It does just look like I've made a little heart shape. How sweet. Dry these off a little bit. Now, these ones which I did earlier, here's my other little kitty. Here's some more spring flowers where I cut out around the whole edge. And here is that iconic image of the two dancing from La La Land. And as you can see, all of them kind of, they seem at first to transfer really well. The colours are quite beautiful. But they look sort of cloudy, and I think that's because I just didn't rub enough paper off. They were looking really good when they were wet, and then when they dried, they had this sort of cloudy effect about them. And I thought, oh well, if they looked good when they were wet, it might be that they just need varnishing. So I varnished them with some Mod Podge, some more Mod Podge. But that didn't help, and so I do think the cloudiness is excess paper that could have still been rubbed away. So it is a little bit of a judgment call. Well, it's absolutely a judgment call because you don't want to rub the entire image off, but you do want to rub away enough that, of course, the entire image is fully exposed in its full technicolor beauty. So perhaps you can see what I mean here. There's that sort of cloudy effect, which tells me that I probably just need to keep rubbing away at the surface of the paper. So I'm going to now leave those to dry completely. And I've still got these, which I'll come back to tomorrow. I'll put those to one side. I think they look very nice. But what I did next was to create a kind of frame for my image. And I did that using tissue paper. So I've chosen 3 different colours. You can choose any number of colours. I chose purple, a blue and a green. I said I was going to leave this to dry completely, but I lied. I'm going to do the frame on this. It can continue drying whilst I'm working around it. So I think maybe this goat would like a bit of a red frame. A bit of yellow. This sort of peach colour. And what I did was to tear rather than cut little strips of tissue paper. By tearing, of course, I've got this rough edge. It's not a super straight edge, which I like better. I like the effect, and I also think that because it's not going to be, we're sort of creating a rough circle, but it's not an exact perfect circle, of course. It makes sense for the edges to be a bit kind of loose and rough, if that makes sense. So I'm tearing strips off about maybe that big. And again, we're using the Mod Podge. So carefully dabbing on a bit of the Mod Podge. And I will lay the tissue paper on, a bit like that. Kind of fold it over so that we cover the edge of the disc as well. Pop some Mod Podge on kind of the edge of the disc to secure it down. And then going to the back of the disc, I can trim off what I don't need. So just torn off a bit more paper. I will lay that. I want to place it here, so it's overlapping the previous piece of paper. Do you know? Last time I put the Mod Podge on the paper, but actually it may be better to apply it to the disc and then put the paper on top of that. Of course that's better. How could I have possibly suggested it the previous way? Trim off the bits that I don't need from the back. Snippety snip. A bit more Mod Podge to secure the edges. Lovely. A bit of this peach. Mod Podge. Stick. Trim. And then Mod Podge. Paper. edges. Trim. Snip, snip. Bit more Mod Podge to secure the edges. Oh, my cat is in the room. The little cat you saw a picture of earlier. Hey, come in here, Vinks. Sometimes she loves being on camera, but not today. So what's been happening where you are? Have you been seeing signs of spring? I know there are lots of spring flowers out in Highbury Park and other places around Birmingham. I know some of you like to get out into the countryside. Maybe you've seen some, I don't know, have you seen some lambs? Any goats? Maybe you're fortunate in your own garden and have beautiful things growing there. When I moved into my house, I didn't have, so I had a yard rather than a proper garden. So I went through an enormously painstaking process of planting a lawn, which looked amazing by the end of the summer. The winter has left it looking pretty sorry for itself. But in the last couple of weeks, the grass has really started to grow again. And I'm going to plant some other stuff, flowers and shrubs, and some vegetables in a raised bed at the end of my garden. So it's going to look nice this summer. It's just in the very early stages of coming out of hibernation. Okay, so I'm kind of Mod Podging around the Mod Podging. I am Mod Podging around the edge of the tissue paper to seal that down and protect it. My cat is just sitting by the desk here, and she's paying close attention to what's going on. Just not wanting to show her face. So I'm putting a bit more water on here. Rub a bit more paper away. Looking cute. So here's our two complete designs with their paper frames. Pretty happy with those, to be honest. When your whole piece is finished, you can, if you want, apply yet another layer of Mod Podge all over the whole piece, the frame and the transfer, so that it's all protected, and it doesn't dry to a sort of glossy finish, but it is a sort of matte varnish, if that makes sense. Oh, what's happening with my other spring flowers? Let's see. Definitely need a bit more paper taken off of these. So cheese, Vinculus. Cheese. Okay. Thanks for joining us today for this video on transferring laser printed images onto wooden discs and creating tissue paper frames. I hope you've enjoyed it. I will briefly pop back in tomorrow to show you what happened with these two, and I look forward to seeing what some of you create yourselves. So thanks for joining us, and bye for now. Hi again. So as promised, here are the finished pieces. This one of Vinculus the kitty, it's come out okay. As you can see, I've over rubbed in places, and I've done a little bit of the same with the goat. So just a cautionary tale there. We need to be not overzealous when we're rubbing off our paper. These flowers have come out pretty nice. I've done a frame similar to the one that I did on the goatee and these dancers. Now, I did mention at the start of the video that there are other options besides doing the paper frame. So one might be that if you had some ribbon, you might put it around the sides, or you might use something like washi tape to do a similar effect here. And another option is just to draw a kind of decoration around the sides. So I've simply used a Posca pen here. So on this one of Vinculus, because she's a kitty, I've just drawn some paw prints around the side. And this one I just went with dots all around the side. I think it just finishes off the image a little bit better. Here's the other one I did using the characters from La La Land. And the transfer hasn't come out as well, so I've not progressed any further with this particular piece. I think it's nicer. I think it looks more finished when you've done something around the edge, even if it's something as simple as just drawing these dots. Now, I did also mention that Mod Podge, it doesn't dry to a gloss, it dries to a sort of matte finish, which is what you can see here. I should have said that actually, although I'm using matte Mod Podge, you can get a glossy version, I believe. Or another option is, if you wanted that sort of more glossy finish, is to use nail varnish, which is what I've done on these full colour versions. So I think you saw me going over all of my images with a layer of Mod Podge, but afterwards I did go over the coloured sections with nail varnish as well, because I felt that that helped the colours to come out more brightly. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video and you'll enjoy having a go yourself, making your own transfers and your own frames, if that's what you choose to do. If you're a member of our WhatsApp group, please do send us your images, or let us know how you get on in the chat in this video, and we shall look forward to hearing from you. So I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope you're having a wonderful springtime. Bye for now.